Chapter 5 describes and provides many examples of visual controls that can be applied in physical and virtual work environments. The first video provides an overview of what it means to visualize work using visual controls. The next video, Paul's Kitchen, provides a fun look at how Paul Akers of Fastcap has applied visual controls in his own workplace kitchen. This is a terrific overview of different kinds of visual controls that I refer to in the other videos of this chapter. The last 5 videos go through each of the 5 types of visual controls to show many examples of these controls, and also to explain how and why these controls are so effective in making work transparent. All right, so what's this idea of the visualized work? So the purpose of this practice is basically to make everyday work visible, make it transparent as possible. And the idea is you're supporting 2 things. You're supporting operations, so it helps you to actually do the work, and it helps you to improve the work. So and again, visual controls are a tremendous way of doing this, and you'll get a chance to see that in a lot of detail tonight. The reason you're making the work transparent is because you want to provide information and feedback, not just to the managers. In traditional firms, they're the ones that are overseeing quality and improvement, but it's to managers and employees once you get them more involved in kind of partnering in quality, so to maintaining and improving the quality. But the basic idea is if you can't see a problem, you can't fix it. So that's the whole idea of visualizing the work. So visual controls, these are specific kinds of devices. And you'll see what I mean by that. There's all different kinds. Some are physical, some are virtual or online, computer type things, but all designed to make the work transparent. So you're going to see charts, displays, floor markings, labels, and then there's a lot of kind of virtual or cyber equivalents to them, like the toolbars, email flags, naming conventions, and so we'll go into those. The visual controls, in general terms, they should be clearly visible. So these are things that are out in the open, that people can see, people doing the work and even other people, readily accessible to all employees. Now, so you'll have a chance to be designing visual controls for your operation in this coming week. And the things you should consider, think about the target audience. So who is going to be looking at these controls? What do they need to do their job and improve their job? So kind of start with that. I'm going to give you a menu of visual control types, and we'll go through them, all kind of examples. So this way you have some things to look at as you're, to give you ideas, come up with ideas for, what should the format and content of these controls be. You should always, and throughout Lean, think value added for your employees. So don't just post things on the walls and on screens just because you think it looks good. Make sure you're explicitly providing value and you understand what value is to the employee. So too much is not good. So that can be kind of a visual pollution. You don't want to do that. The devices you design, they should be simple, they should be legible, easy to interpret, and easy to use. And that's not always easy to do, but that's what you need to try to do. Plus, some of them require updating. So you'll see as we go through. So, anything involving data and information that's kind of has to be updated, you want to make it easy to update and specifically assign people to do the updating. So that's all kind of part of the package. So these are the kinds of visual controls we're going to go through. And real briefly, you've got 3 different kinds. You have work guides, current status indicators, and performance trackers. So work guides basically do that. They guide the work. They help you to find things. They help you to understand how to do things. Current status indicators are kind of a snapshot. You'll see some of them are cues. meaning signals or flags that action is needed. And some are real-time displays, meaning like what's happening right now. And the performance trackers are more past performance, like performance displays, and also process logs. So those are the general types. And what I want to do, I remember you saw Paul Akers last time. You saw his stand-up meeting. You called it the morning meeting. And he's got a real nice video here, 2 minutes and 40 seconds, showing his kitchen at work. And he's actually got nice examples of a lot of visual controls. And I'll actually reference them later on. I want to show you the video. He did write this book called 2 Second Lean. I think I mentioned last time, we kind of grew up in business together. We both discovered lean together. Paul's kitchen, pay attention to the visual controls, and then we'll come back and start going through examples. So let's get.
And I'm going to show you all the neat things that we do to make it so easy to work in our kitchen and to eat at our lunch area. So watch this. Check out the lunch table. The salt and pepper shakers, they have a specific place. So they can't be strewn about. They have to go back exactly where they need to go. And as a result, we have a highly organized lunch area. Even the paper towels have a spot. And of course, Windex, because I'm Greek, has a spot. So when it comes time to clean up, you simply take a paper towel, you spray your area, and you clean up, and you're done. That way, our table always stays perfect. Come to our refrigerator area and our kitchen area, we have a cleaning chart here that shows exactly the steps for doing everything in the kitchen every day. So our kitchen stays perfect all day long. We even have a list of all the people who are responsible for kitchen duty on that particular week. My favorite is the dishwasher. Check this out. The dishwasher has a lot of great features because we made washing dishes very easy, because a lot of times one of the most confusing things is whether or not the dishes are clean or dirty. So we have this little Velcro dot. It happens to be one of our products. And if it's red on the outside, that means the dishes inside are dirty. If it's green, that means the dishes are either in the wash cycle or they're clean, so don't load it. But the next thing is when and how to start the dishwasher. To start the dishwasher, you just push button 1 and button 2. There is no guesswork on all these other buttons. You just push those 2 in that order, turn the dot over to green because you started the cycle, and you're done. But my favorite improvement to the dishwasher is right here. One of our employees came up with a great idea of zip tying a spoon, a fork, and a knife onto the basket. Why? So that when you load the dishes, you get the spoons in the right place, you get the forks in the right place, and of course you get the knives in the right place. And that's a big deal because when you pull the clean dishes out, you don't have to sort them. So that saves time of motion and transportation because you get the right forks and knives the first time out without a whole bunch of sorting. It seems simple, but it actually makes a big deal, and it actually makes unloading the dishwasher fun. In our kitchen area, you can see that everything is clearly marked out. Even the microwaves, the bowls, the plates, the straws, everything is detailed out. Even our boxes up here, you can easily access them if you're not tall just by pulling on this little hole right here, and it tells you there's sugar and silver tins in there. Very strong visual controls. That's how you create an epic lean cook. That's how you create an epic, stop laughing at me, Kathy. Kathy's laughing at me over there. That's how you create an epic lean kitchen. Kathy?
The first kind I call finders. So these are basically ways of finding things that you have to use in doing your work. And the things might be physical materials, they might be digital materials. Okay. So if you, like he's showing you, if you have to find the paper towels, there's a place for it. If you have to find cleaning equipment, there's a place for it. It's all, a lot of marking. See, marking the floor. This is called a shadow box here, and so forth. Then you also have contents of a bin or a drawer where you can't see into it. And how often do you have to pull out a drawer and say, "What's it?" I keep forgetting where all this stuff is. It's just, and his book is called 2 Second Lean, and the reason is he just wants his people to improve by 2 seconds every day, which seems like a silly thing, but that really adds up. So, here's his example of the, good labeling. Sometimes you have a colored bin system. His idea of putting the, the spoon and knife and fork, is where you kind of have a sample. So sometimes they do that in bins too. Say like if this is hidden, you'll put a little sample of what's inside, a physical sample. So just a lot of common sense stuff, but it's really useful. Now in the digital world, you've got various ways of doing this as well, of finding things. So if you think about it, when you're working online, you have to find and use a lot of digital materials, right? You have to find files and folders and emails and all that. And so you actually have to go through the screen to find them. They're not physically there. So actually there's a lot of visual controls in the digital world, but they aren't always so well designed, and sometimes you don't think about it. And you can't control all of these, but for example, take naming convention right here, okay? The way you name your files and folders, okay? Some people come up with a convention for it, so that, for example, Carlos, let's say your cases, there's a standard way you name a case, maybe a case number, and that's always the beginning of the file or the folder. But sometimes people don't do that. Sometimes you just kind of do it. And so some of these are under your control and you need to design them, and they make a big difference. They help people to just do things, you as well as others, do it easily, and it makes it more transparent. And the reason all of these make the work transparent is because you know where things are supposed to be. And so when something's missing, you realize it too, like you get one of these boards here. If this broom was missing, you'd know it right away. And when you have a nice naming convention with all the case numbers, maybe in sequence, you'd immediately see that a case was missing because there's no, because they're all sorted. So it's simple stuff like that really really can make a difference. Keywords and hashtags. Again, if you're trying to find things, the way you've set up your keywords, whether it's internal to the company or even external on your websites. Hashtags, another way of having a standard that you can find things. Menus and submenus. Also, again, this is how you find things. Now, this may be harder. You may have to go to your IT folks to do some of this, but some of this is under your control as well. Okay, so those are the find its. The next type, which is another type of work guide, are what I call the how-tos. So these are maybe work instructions, very common. One of the most common things is a checklist. So here's the example from X Solutions I've used before. Checklist should not be, every single thing you do. It should be something just to kind of make sure that the key things are done. And sometimes these are actually checkoffs. Like pilots have checklists all the time. I mean, because you don't want to, not fuel the airplane or do something you're supposed to be doing. So where you actually physically check the boxes, but you don't have to. It could be just something posted on the wall. Like here, this is a little sign. That was the one from Paul's video, and even the more visual you can get, the better. So he has even little pictures of what steps do you go through to clean. Then you have physical flow guides. So these are more of the things that you've seen, you typically see them on the floor, kind of the in, out, to guide how people are going, floor traffic. Now, of course, you have a lot of the social distancing controls you see on mostly on the floors and so forth. Then the virtual world, you've got, for example, toolbars. Okay, so you might not think of that as a visual control, but it is, because it's showing you how to do things, right? How to insert, how to start your slideshow. The help tabs especially, okay? And you might say, all right, well, that's all in there already, but a lot of times there's a training issue that either you or your people don't know what's there. I know I'm the worst offender of that. I'm always going, I don't, how do I do this? And it's right there in front of me. So that can be a training issue of how to, know how to use these visual controls. Of course, how-to articles. I mean, there's so much you can learn from just Googling how to do things. It's just amazing. So these are all things you can do to as kind of a work guide. Okay, now then you get into the current status types of controls. And the first type is what I call action cues, like a flag, like a signal. So at City Furniture, they have these flags, and it's, you know, they have like a 1 million square foot warehouse. So the supervisor can look down a long row and immediately see if one of the stations has a problem. They'll put up a red flag, and then the supervisor will go right there. Okay, so it's a cue to action. I took this picture when I got my vaccine shot. This was, you know, at the Jackson Hospital setup, and so they had it very nicely organized. As soon as this person was available, she put up a sign that said, "I'm open." So it was a signal to me next in line, go there. You know, everything was really visual there. Very, very well done. You have sometimes triggers. So for example, here's a bunch of whatever they are, you know, some kind of the toner for the Xerox machine. So this is an example of where, you know, when you get down to only 2 left, that's trigger, time to reorder. Okay, a cue. It's meant to be a cue to go do something. Just like this was a cue. This was a cue for me to walk over. It was time for the next in line. City Furniture had a really interesting way of, in their showrooms, in the City Furniture showrooms, if any of you have been in there lately, they didn't want to have the sales reps chasing people around. You know, they're trying to be more, let it be pulled through by the people. So they're in every City Furniture showroom, they should have a reception desk at the front, and there's always a rep sitting there. And if somebody comes in and needs help, that rep will go with them. And as soon as that rep leaves that seat, that open seat is a signal to the next one in line to come and sit down. And this was all purposefully done. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that that you can do with these action cues. Virtual world, calendar reminders, they are so useful. You'll see in the case studies, I'm going to recommend that to a number of you. It can be really useful. Email flags, timer clocks, things like that. Okay, the other type of current status are what I call real-time displays, and these are very useful too. You probably have some of these already in your business, but you really have to think about it. There's a couple of different flavors of it. You have, this type is called, often called an accountability board. And the idea is that down the left-hand side of the, you know, all these are like charts, you know, like a big matrix. Down the left-hand side are people or teams. So these are people who are assigned to do certain things. And then this might be the status of what they're doing, what's planned, and so forth. City Furniture, I don't know if you remember the picture of their stand-up meeting, but on the right, there was a big board that had a bunch of yellow Post-it notes on it. And what it was, that's how they handle all the suggestions from employees and managers, and they assign them to people and they track it. They say, okay, you know, and they keep moving it across the board, like, okay, how are you doing in this one? How are you doing in this one? So that's the idea of accountability. You have process status board. The steps are across the top. What you have down here are the units, see, by unit of flow. Okay, so Carlos, like you guys, your unit of flow is a case. So it's a case that flows through. So you would, if you can picture having a board that looks like this, where these are all case number 1, case number 2, case number 3, and then across the top, you see which step they're in, what status they're in. And I know you have a lot of cases, so we'll talk about how you might deal with that, but that would be an example of a process status board. So basically steps across the top, and like for George, this might be your listings down the side, where your listings stand. Matt, that would be your inspection records. In theory, it doesn't mean you do it. Mercedes, it would be your asset requests down the side. And Rennie, these would be your offboarding requests. So, you know, it may just be a few, there may be a lot. And you have to kind of customize it to what your own situation. The other kind is by assets you don't see as often. So it could be like, here's a rental car company, the status of different fleets of rental cars by location, whether it's loaded, overloaded. And you know, when you go virtual in some of these things, which I think probably Rennie, you're I think doing with the Monday.com, maybe others are doing it. You also have to now consider, can other people join in and add and adjust in real time? So this is the first of the controls that need updating. So you have to not only you know, make it easy to update, but you have to assign somebody to update it. So as you know, as these cases get updated, Carlos, somebody has to update them. You know, and some of this can be done automatically in the system, but a lot of times at first you just do it by hand until you see what works and what doesn't. Then you can automate it later. Okay, performance displays. So now here we're looking at kind of a bird's eye view of the past performance at a couple of different levels. Here you have group and enterprise level. Sometimes we talk about KPIs, key performance indicators at the enterprise level. The City Furniture has a whole wall dedicated to this stuff. Or you can have charts and so forth. Or you can also have process performance. So, you know, where you specifically track metrics related to the process. It turns out most companies have a lot of these group enterprise level, and they have very few process performance reports. So a lot of times you have to do this by hand, and that's going to be part of what I'm going to recommend for your target processes this coming week. So we'll talk about that in just a second. So, so you have displays or reports like this, and then you have logs, okay? And you think, all right, this is, you know, looks like a pain. These are super useful, super useful. And I'll talk about how to do it in your coming up for this coming week. It doesn't mean you'll do it forever. It's something that really helps you track some really important metrics. So, and it depends on what you're trying to track. And I'll give you examples when we get into the case study. So, you know, you might track complaints, errors, back orders. Like in this chart, this was from X Solutions, where they're tracking the beginning and ending time of the ticket that comes in and how many minutes it took to solve it, to fix the problem. So that's what would be considered total cycle time, like the total cycle of one process. Okay.